Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name's Steve and this is a 5-minute review of You Were Never Really Here from 2017, starring Joaquin Phoenix. On the surface, this could have been just another standard crime thriller, and I think if it had been in the hands of a different director or you had a different star in the main role, then that's what it could have ended up. The story initially seems to be about a man called Joe who is sent to retrieve people who've been kidnapped, and the main story focuses on his attempt to find and retrieve the daughter of a senator. It quickly becomes apparent that that's not really what the film is about, at least beneath the surface. Joaquin Phoenix plays this really troubled guy, and throughout the film we're exposed to various flashbacks from his life. We begin to piece together from these images that at some point he served in the military and he witnessed all kinds of horrors, and then later on he was in the FBI, and there again something traumatic happened to him. These days he just works as a troubleshooter, but he has a very unusual life. He lives with his aging mother and looks after her, and clearly he cares for her very much. At the start of the film there is a nice touch of humour, and you can see that he's not without love and warmth and affection for his mother, despite her being quite troublesome at times because of her age. But the very first image we see of Joe is him asphyxiating himself in a wardrobe with a sort of a plastic bag over his head, and this is something that he does later on several other times. His body is covered with scars, and as the film goes on, you realise that the traumas he's suffered aren't just physical from his time in the FBI and the army, but also from his difficult childhood. The film has a slightly dreamlike quality to it, and in some ways I drew parallels between this and Drive, starring Ryan Gosling. Joe is also a man of few words, and he doesn't really say much throughout the entire film. He tends to speak through his actions, and the violence in the film is incredibly powerful and shocking. There are also moments when we see the violence through strange prisms. At one point we see it through the surface of a mirror in the ceiling of a room. Another time we see it only on the periphery of CCTV. So we know that that's what Joe is doing. He's brutally hurting people with his favoured weapon of choice, which in this case is a ball hammer. What started out as quite a simple case for Joe quickly spirals into something else, and he's just trying to get on with the job, but people keep interfering with him and getting in his way, which leads to explosive and very violent action. I went into this film knowing very little about it other than the main star and the director, and came away feeling most peculiar. At its core, the film is about a very broken man who at times seems suicidal because of everything that's happened to him, and yet he's also trying to help children who are also experiencing severe forms of trauma. It's difficult to talk about some parts of the film because some of the scenes are incredibly visually stimulating and most unusual. They have a strange dreamlike quality to them. There are moments where you're not sure if it's actually happening or a hallucination from Joe. He's constantly on edge. The pace of the film is really tense, and the score is this climactic crunch of cymbals and loud noises and overlapping voices from people, and it all feels like at any moment Joe might really hurt someone or himself. Joaquin Phoenix's performance in this film is amazing. His portrayal of Joe as this very damaged man is incredibly convincing. At times the film is surreal, but it's always gripping and unpredictable because you have no idea what Joe is going to do or where the story is going. I also think it's the kind of film you need to watch more than once because there's a lot of things going on in the background, whether it's visual cues or audio cues from the music in the film. Everything has been chosen very, very precisely and nothing is there at random. It's been a couple of days now since I saw the film, and it's still with me, which tells you something about the power of what was going on screen. So because of all of that, I'm going to have to give it 5 out of 5 and say I highly recommend you seeing this film, despite it being an unusual one and not what I was expecting for an action film. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.